special delivery.
Okay, this is a big one.
This is a big one.
To me, it's a big one. What are your thoughts on how much of an ownership stake should the content creator, right, or influencer have on a brand endorsement, like working with the brand? So like, e.g., like example, let's say that a brand comes to a content creator and like, hey, we want you to push our new, Taco Bell, whatever, or some type of product. Absolutely. And the content creator's like, I know my audience really well. This is how I would approach it. So the content creator really wants to they have it dialed in. They know that they're putting the time to work, all that, and they recognize how their audience is going to respond. But then sometimes the brand comes in and like, this is what we want to do. Like, this is our message campaign. Here's but if you want a relationship with us, you want a partner, you have to align with this. What's the challenges of that, and like how much of a sacrifice should the content creator take while making that brand endorsement while staying authentic to their base?
That's that's actually first of all, that's a really awesome question, and that's a question that as a consultant who is overseeing these campaigns and reaching out and dealing with brands, and as an influencer, I get to see both perspectives. As a content creator and an influencer, what I do, and this is what I would recommend other influencers or content creators do, is weigh the pros and cons of the brand that you're dealing with. For example, I'm not gonna name this brand, but it's a very well-known brand. They've come to me quite often, for a substantial amount, and they pay me a substantial amount too. But they're very specific. They're very specific, and they're very much like the product needs to be center of frame. Now, my audience, I don't do that. I don't post content like that. Right. So obviously my response is, well, I don't think that my audience they're like, no, this is what we want. This is what we want. Now, I have two choices. I can either say, no, this isn't for me, or I can go through with it. In a case like that, it was such a well-known brand and it was such a lucrative offer, I said, okay, that's fine. Now, my audience understands that I am an entrepreneur and I'm a consultant. So, yes, there are comments that are like, oh man, this is obviously an ad. But it's more in a supportive, sarcastic tone. Good. And they understand, because that's my audience is very sophisticated. They're like, oh, well, CJ is obviously making some money right now. On the other side of that, let me continue on with that. As a content creator and as an influencer, if the brand is not very well known, it's not very lucrative, no deal. And by the way, as a content creator and an influencer, I don't think that brands or people know how many endorsement offers you get. I am considered a macro influencer on Twitter and a micro influencer on Instagram, and I still get around 5 messages a day from various companies, various industries offering X, Y, and Z for me to endorse them. So I get to pick and choose, and people don't understand it. Like, not only that, but a lot of the messages are copy and paste. Oh, I know that. So the messages are usually the same.
Dude, okay, so side note, I've last year and like last 2 years, no lie, every other week I would get some box, like Amazon Prime box of some crap, like random things. Like who is sending me this? Like one time it was like a back scratcher. I'm like, why am I getting this junk? But I'm like, oh, hold on 1 second. And I'm like, I'm wondering, I know what's going on here. People are trying to it's kind of like a subliminal type of marketing tactic.
And that's something that's evolved and changed, right? Because it used to, you would ask permission, and now they don't.
Oh no,
Which is extraordinary, because again, as a content creator and influencer, we understand the game. It's not like we're communicating with one another. There was a product that showed up at my home, and I've never heard of this product. I obviously instinctively put 2 and 2 together that they probably, some PR company gave them a list, or the PR company did that on behalf of this brand. Anyway, I shouted them out on Instagram story. I did not have to. They didn't ask me to do that. This was not I was not obligated to do that. And when I did that, I had 3 different friends like say that happened to me
No
too.
way.
How did they get your address? And we asked them how they got our addresses, and they didn't respond.
Dude, oh my gosh. That is so like spammy.
It's so spammy, but that it not only is that spammy, but that just shows you the evolution of what this looks
Right.
like. Now, from a brand standpoint, this is absolutely the issue that we have with brands and companies that reach out to influencers, is that it typically looks like this. You go into a room, you pitch this project, and there's always going to be someone that does not believe in influencer marketing anyway, despite what the metrics are.
Right.
So they're saying, let's be as safe as possible and make sure that CJ, whatever his name is, does exactly what we want him to do and push that.
Yeah.
That is the goal. So listen to CJ, finesse CJ, talk to him, hear him out, keep pushing it. And as the deadline gets closer, keep pushing it. Show them examples. Do whatever it takes. Make them feel like they're very comfortable with you. This is what's being discussed.
Yeah.
Now, this is my job on the line. I'm going to do exactly what I'm told to do.
Yeah.
So as a content creator, as an influencer, I don't take it personal at all. You shouldn't, by the way. And these brands, for the most part, look up things like keywords. They use AI databases to find you in the first place. Right. So they don't really know who you are anyway. So when you're saying my audience is not, may or may not, they hear that all day. And they're talking to a good, maybe like 100 in some cases, 100 different influencers in a day. That's a lot. That's a lot. Maybe 50, maybe 25. Like that's still a lot of personalities. Yeah. And everybody's saying something different but similar.
Right.
Everybody's pushing back on the same thing. But again, your goal is to make sure it's authentic and organic.
I love that.
So what we see work the best.
Yeah.
What we see work the best is brands that actually vet and do their due diligence. So what I mean by that is that basically, when I was using the example of the brand that I worked with before, well, they know that I'm a men's fashion influencer. So it makes sense for them to reach out to me and give me a little bit of wiggle room, even if they're like, no, this is the way that we want it, right? And if CJ doesn't agree, we have like other people that we can go to anyway. Yeah. And where brands make that mistake is they leave it up to this AI, this algorithmic system, and all they know is that you are an influencer. They don't even really know what channels you're popular on. I've literally told people, I'm like, I have over 100,000 followers on Twitter, right? They're like, yeah, just post on Instagram story. Oh, okay. Well, sure, it's your time, no problem. I mean, I'm still gonna get paid. Yeah. But understanding that, letting the content creator and the influencer, I found is very, like, letting them have creative control and creative freedom is difficult. Like, it just is, because you're like leaving it up to chance in certain circumstances. Right. And sometimes, like, I'm reaching out to you and, you're taking pride in your work. You want to be creative. And all of a sudden you're doing something that I would never expect you to do because I gave you that creative freedom. I've seen that happen too. I
know. Sometimes it can be, like, it lead to a more organic engagement. Oh man. So that leads to, you're speaking a lot of like tips and tricks and things like that. Why don't share with us a little bit about, from a content creator perspective, what are a few things that they can keep top of mind when they go into those like brand kind of conversations of like negotiation and like,
absolutely. I would look at it in the way of a business and be very respectful to who you speak with.
Okay.
I think a lot of times the issues that content creators and influencers face is that they understand the power of influence and their egos get in the way. Right. Yeah. So when they're negotiating, they are not negotiating from the knowledge, right, of a business background, a marketing background, or even in some cases an entertainment background. Right. They're literally in this space where they're learning as they're going, and then they have friends that they can compare notes to. Right? Yeah. So when they're going into these negotiations or these situations, they're only seeing it from their perspective. Now, if you're a really smart content creator and a really smart influencer, you understand the game, then this is all you need to know. Be respectful. That's it. Yeah. And patient. And if it's not for you, for the love of God, pay it forward and recommend some other people that it might be good for.
Yeah.
Don't just dismiss it. Don't ignore it. It's not a waste of time, because you never know. When you're building bridges for other people, you never know how that comes full circle, because it always does.
You're right. It
always does. And you learn that in the entertainment business.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact, when I was in college, there was this, one of my professors, he was a producer of this show for this news anchor who he was like, CJ, if you are interested in being in this, you should kind of study his tips. He's a rising star. I just see it in him. And I met this gentleman. I was very respectful to him. He was very respectful to me. Ryan Seacrest. All right.
Yeah.
Some of the tips that I learned on how to be an influencer. I was a budding screenwriter. I was on the set of Community, and true story. Chevy Chase walks by me, looks me up and down, keeps on walking. Nice to meet you, Chevy. Joe McHale, very, very awesome. The entire cast was amazing. As a black man, obviously Donald Glover at the time was a comedic genius if you understood that world of television and comedy writing at that time. And this was right before he became Childish Gambino, and he was sitting in a corner by himself on a laptop. And everybody knew to give him his space. Everybody respected this kid, this black kid.
Yeah.
They knew he was primed for big things. And I'll never forget the story that he told me that I carried with me forever and ever and ever. He said, he's like, I don't know what I'm doing as this Childish Gambino thing. It was a joke. It took off. Next, Jay-Z's calling me this and that. He didn't even want to own the fact that he was becoming a music artist. He didn't want to own the fact that people were taking him serious because he was such a comedic force.
Yeah.
And he says to me, we shot this music video. It was the first music video I ever did. And I just want to drop it on YouTube. Because he understood his audience and understood organic influence.
Right.
He understood, I don't need to do anything else but post it on YouTube, and it's going to go viral. And his handlers were like, no, you got to go to MTV Europe Awards, and then they got to premiere it on MTV. And he's like, who watches MTV? And I remember that the reason why I bring up that story is because it was so indicative of the fact that like his intuition was absolutely correct. He understood the landscape was changing.
Yeah.
He understood that the business was changing. He was being very respectful to people that he thought knew better than him, but he knew what he needed to do. And a lot of times these influencers, quote unquote, aren't even influencers.
Right.
They're copycatting other people because they want to make money. Some women do it in the way of like, I'm just going to be provocative. Some men do it the same way. Yeah. Some people are just being goofy for being goofy's sake. You're all doing it because you just want to make a buck. But if it's with intention and you understand why you're doing it, when you're having these conversations with brands, you're getting something out of it.